it's Jason with Chicago News, and this week we've got a small pickup truck that actually is something you can afford. This is the 2018 base model Nissan Frontier. This is so basic it's actually just got a regular key to start it. Let's hop inside and see how it is. Now that we're inside this Nissan Frontier, let me tell you, people say that time travel isn't possible. I say just get in one of these. You'll be transported back to the late 90s. This is really unchanged in here from something you get in that time period. It's absolutely as simple as can be. You've got crank windows. Really the only thing that tips it off is this LCD screen. It's actually US regulations now that you have to have a backup camera. So there's a screen here. It's a nice small screen, but that's really the only thing that tips it off. The dash display in the center, all of the controls. The other thing that tips it off is there's a USB and an auxiliary input port here right above the 12-volt outlet. Couple of small things that tip it off, but otherwise this is a trip back in time. This is base model as it gets. This is the entry level. Starts just over $20,000. Really, to get an actual pickup truck for that kind of money, it's a fantastic value. You know, you can see why when you look at the content in here. This is as simple as it gets, even down to the transmission. Not only is this a manual, but it's a 5-speed manual, not a 6-speed manual. If you drive a manual often and it's a 6-speed, you get used to 6th gear being down below 5th gear. In this case, reverse is in that same spot. I do kind of wish that reverse were in another area, because you might forget on the highway, go for 6th gear and you'd be trying to get it into reverse. Driving this thing is a good reminder of just how spoiled we've gotten with all the features you get on modern cars. You know, push button start, power everything, all kinds of navigation features, active safety features, Apple CarPlay, all this stuff. Nothing like that in here. In fact, when was the last time you did this to open the window? All that being said, there's something really nice about being in this simple of a vehicle. Cars are getting so complex these days. Obviously, the more complex they get, better chance there is of something breaking. You know, this really feels simple. It's a nice throwback. And honestly, if you're buying this as a work truck, you don't really need any of those features anyway. You know, when you think about it, these small pickup trucks actually are really the ancestors of your modern small SUVs and crossovers. These were huge in the 80s and 90s, the mini trucks, if you will, Ford Ranger, you know, all of these smaller trucks then ended up turning into the small SUVs we have nowadays. Ultimately though, if you're buying a small truck like this, you're doing it because you need to move some stuff around. You need that bed in the back, and you know, you can really feel when this thing is unloaded that it's quite stiff. It doesn't ride very well. That's because you need the extra spring capacity to have the payload in the back. Even though this is just a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder, 152 horsepower, it does have a decent payload capacity and a decent towing capacity. So you can really use this for work, for play, if you need to, you know, move a dirt bike or a 4-wheeler around or something like that. This is a great truck to get. With the 4-cylinder, the towing capacity is 3,500 pounds, but you can also get a V6 in this, and that'll up your towing capacity to 6,500 pounds. Really though, there's not a lot of cars in general that you can get for $20,000. So to be able to get a pickup truck that's got a teeny tiny back seat, if you do need to move some friends around, you can cram someone back here. But ultimately, you know, you've got a back seat for some extra storage, you've got the bed, and this is something you can really use to move around. One nice thing about having a smaller pickup, especially in the city, this being the 2-wheel drive model, it's not quite as high up off the ground. Not very many other trucks have such a low roof clearance, so if you're working in the city, you might run across a parking garage or somewhere you need to get to. You won't fit. A truck like this will let you get in there. Another old school touch we found in here, the sunglasses holder up here. It's big enough for those blue blockers if you've got them. One thing about this 4-cylinder is it does have quite a bit of vibration. Even sitting at idle sometimes, you know, it's just really rattling the whole chassis. And if you lug it at lower RPM in a higher gear like we're doing right now, you can definitely feel vibration through the chassis. Again, it's a truck. I'm not expecting this to be a luxury car, but it does seem to have an excessive, right there you can hear it, an excessive amount of vibration. You know, also with a 4-cylinder, we would hope for a little better mileage. This was rated 19 city, 23 highway. You know, once again, this is a truck, so you're not expecting necessarily the best mileage, but this is a pretty small and light vehicle, so, you know, hoping for a little bit better than just 23. You know, what can you really say about the interior quality here? It's, you know, a workman-like environment. You've got thin plastic all over the door panels. You know, they've really borrowed a little bit from the F-150 design for the center stack. It looks good enough, but the materials are pretty basic, and you know, that's what you'd expect from an entry-level truck like this. You know, there's just no doubt that you're driving a pickup truck when you hit some of these bumps. It really does have a pretty jarring ride, but once again, that's to give you that extra capacity to put payload in the bed. When you look up the different generations of this Nissan Frontier, this is supposedly the 3rd generation, which started in 2014, but you know, really this is more of an update of the 2nd generation, which came out in 2004, and you know, this really does feel like you're going back to 2004. Honestly though, that's not a bad thing. You know, when you have something that works and that most people are going to use for work, there's really no reason to change it. I mean, this does everything you need it to, and it even has kind of a cool retro feel on the inside, so this is one time where I say, don't change a thing. So what do we think of this Nissan Frontier? Well, it's like a trip back in time. This is as basic as it gets, but for a work truck, something that's small you can use in the city, this is what you want.